Hi, so this is Avery Mints, and this is my review slash rambling of Outer Wilds. Just to start off, I would just immediately shut down the video if you haven't played any of this, because I would say this is one of the best games I've ever played. And it's quite spoiler heavy, so um, it's really just if you played the game before. Um, Otherwise, I'd follow the advice of lots of other people and just give it a try yourself, just to see what it's like. So I've kind of got a lot to run through, but really, yeah, before we get into the spoiler talk, um, you know, my favorite games would probably be like Uncharted 2, Mass Effect 2, Witcher 3, stuff like that. Um, and then this, you know, that's how much an effect really it had on me. Um, Midway through it, I kind of knew it was quite special, but after beating it and kind of thinking about it after a few days after finishing it. It just really is that good that I have it well, quite regarded quite highly. So starting off really with the graphics and the sound. I mean, graphics are really good. I mean, most impressive thing really is that it's this solar system on a kind of miniature scale, and you've got lots of kind of interesting physics interactions where you've got the planets with the hourglass twins, um, going through black holes, teleporting, warping. And they've just got really jaw-dropping visuals of being on the sun station and just kicking down the emergency hatch and seeing uh, just the full screen just taken up by the sun, and then just the supernova engulfing the whole system. I mean, it is really pretty, especially for such like a small team making it. It's really impressive. But I mean, what I would say is even better than the visuals is the soundtrack to it. I mean, most of the songs in this game are really, really good, and they each fit the different areas that you're in. So, if you're on Ash Twin, you've got a specific type of music for it, and then if you're in Dark Bramble, there's more haunting theme. And then at the end of every loop, there's a really good song that's just really memorable and indicates that you have to kind of wrap things up and get things sorted quickly because you're about to restart again. And then they remix that track for the ending of the game. That's gives builds a lot of tension and really pushes you forward, and um, it adds that extra bit to the ending to make it much more dramatic. Yeah, and then technically it's just really impressive what they're able to pull off with the warping. Um, like this came out in PS4, and there's really no loading or anything like that, and you're just teleporting from one planet to another just in a second. It is really impressive there. The only minor technical hiccup would have been that it had, the frame rate really dropped on one of the runs. After I just restarted, or I quit the menu and restarted it up. It was all fine after that, but yeah, the frame rate, you might see it later on the Giant's Deep Planet, but it dropped really low for some reason. Must have been a glitch. And they're really good with the visuals, just indicating where to go. So you've got like the blue lights for the escape pods, the smoke coming from the campfires. Um, the planets are they're quite sparse, other than the wee areas of interest. Um, so it kind of highlights where you need to go and stuff, and it doesn't make it too confusing for you. Um, but yeah, that soundtrack is just adds so much to the game. Um, it just builds tension in the moments it needs to, and um, like if you discover something really interesting, it just really highlights it. You can see here with even with the tornado one, that's just the music building in the background, just indicating that you've really picked up on a big clue that'll help you work out what's really going on in this universe. Yeah, so moving on really to probably talk about the gameplay first this time, really, just since the story is really important and want to leave as much time as possible for that, since it's a big reason why it is so good. The gameplay, you you're on a 22-minute loop. No one else really knows about this apart from one person. At the end of every loop, the sun supernovas and you all die in that solar system, and then it restarts. Um, you're not really told where to go. You're just kind of um, guided by your signal scope, which is picks up radio signals. You go to it, talk to the other astronauts, and they kind of highlight areas of interest that you may want to check out, but you're really left to your own devices. So yeah, you start off in Timberhearth, which is a great tutorial area. You get um, the wee village first, which highlights all of the different tools that you have, bit of the lore and some of the creatures that you encounter, like the anglerfish, um, as well as like talks you through about the quantum stones and um, the wee gem that sits on the wall and changes the orientation of the gravity in a room. Um, and then the story's working from the get go there as well. You have the Nomai statue and you've got your translator. And you're learning about it, and then if you even just fly around in Timberhearth, you'll pick up more and more clues, and it gives you a brief description of some of the different planets. So you learn a bit about the Dark Bramble. I think you learn a bit about ghost matter on it as well, and then some about the Nomai and what they're doing in the past. And then from there, it's just you can fly out to the solar system, and you've got a good idea of what to look out for. I feel. I originally actually dropped this after maybe playing it for only an hour, for a few months, and then I came back to it and just kept me playing it for until basically I was completed it. And it's really captivating. No game has really done discovery or exploration as well. I'm playing Zelda at the minute, and it's often lauded for its uh, open world design and uh, how well it does discovery. It lets you, it's up to you to go out rather than following map markers. But this, I mean, you're encouraged to go out because of just the mad stuff that you're seeing. And you see it from the get-go. Like some of the stuff on the first planet, I thought I just accidentally stumbled into something in the end game, but it gets crazier and crazier as you go along in it. Um, and you're just gradually piecing everything together. You've got a wee log that helps keep track of things, and it really does help. Before I was about to finish this, I just reflected on everything that I discovered, and the log summarizes all of it. And even though it can be difficult to keep track of all the names, just by reading that, just helped me, fill in the gaps in the knowledge that I maybe had, um, or things that I've forgotten because I didn't think it was as important when I first initially read it. Yeah, and then gameplay wise, you're really just exploring on foot. You've got loads of tools and just like this signal scope, uh, which just points you in it's kind of like your waypoint indicator. And then you've got the Scout Probe, which is a really cool tool that lets you take pictures from miles and miles away. You can see what dangers lurk on the other side of, a warp hole or far off in the distance. Um, and like the spaceship controls and the uh, kind of your jetpack controls are a wee bit confusing at the start. Actually took me a while to wrap my head around the left stick being all horizontal movement, and R2 and L2 being thrust up and thrust down. Just sometimes the way you orient the camera angle, you can kind of switch those around as well. Um, but once you do get used to it, it's really satisfying, and have to take into consideration uh, gravity on the planets as well once you're orbiting them. But like flying to the sun station by ship felt like an achievement after failing a number of times on it and just getting used to the controls really. But yeah, moving on to the story. Yeah, so the story is probably one of the best stories I've played in the game. It is quite emotional, and it's got a lot of scary components in it as well, because it's talking a lot about death and the end of the universe, and how inevitable things are, and you can't really change that. Um, you know, you start out and you're just piecing things together. Um, there's like maybe 4 or 5 different uh, plot points to this game, and you kind of gradually build up the clues that you have on your log, and then eventually you figure out how to link them all together and what the Nomai were actually doing. So they were making a project where um, they discovered a signal for something called the Eye of the Universe, and they were trying to track that down. Um, they basically built a probe that would be sent out and try and discover where this Eye of the Universe is. They were unsure really if it was like a god or if it was just a force, if it was malevolent or um, yeah, if it just didn't really have emotions or anything like that. Um, it's just shrouded in mystery throughout the whole thing. Um, but because they didn't know the exact direction, they would have to send out a lot of probes. But every time they did send out a probe, the cannon they shoot it out of would would be destroyed because of the force that they were having to send it out at. So what they did was try and create a time loop because they discovered that they could send information backwards throughout time. Because there's a discrepancy between um, sending an object through a portal and it coming out the other end. It seemed to come out the other end first that initial before it initially entered it. Um, so yeah, and they had these statues as well that would connect to the different components of this project. It's just really interesting what these statues could connect to people in the event of the project's some component succeeds or fails. Um, so at the very start, this one of the statues connects to you. So kind of figure out their project failed because they couldn't cause the sun to supernova. But as you're at the end of the solar system's life cycle, it has. And it's kickstarted this project, and you're on a time loop every 22 minutes. So, I mean, that's kind of the history of the precursor species, which I don't think any game has really done as well as this. I mean, even Mass Effect probably hasn't done it as well as this. But that's not even the main part. Probably the eye of the universe is, and just heading towards it. So you're trying to break this time loop in the hopes that you'll stop the end of the universe. But you kind of quickly realize that, well, you probably know in the back of your mind that it's not going to stop it, as in it's not going to stop the end of the universe, and that this universe has reached the end of its life cycle, and there's nothing, unfortunately, that you can do about it, and that everyone here has kind of had their time, and instead of looking at it negatively, they kind of look at it in a hopeful way, and almost kind of like a romantic way as well, where they realize that everything's came to an end. They can, um, the music kicks in. You've kind of got the pressure of bringing the, end of the loop and letting this galaxy move on and finish. Um, but you get to the Eye of the Universe anyway, and you're expecting to get questions answered, but you really don't get much. But you do get like one last quiet moment with your friends in like a vision. It just makes your well, final moments easier and lets you reflect on everything that's really happened up to this point. And no one, at that campfire's very upset. They've kind of accepted that it's over and they're ready to move on, really. So you kind of go throughout the game from being quite scared of it all ending to just being happy to, for the experience that you've had and for the ending that you've had with your friends as well. It is quite sad, to be honest. And then you have it where this great moment where each person or astronaut in the game has their own instrument, and they're all playing it separately. But if they all get together, it actually forms a song. It's just a really, really great ending. And then you just pass on a bit of this universe on to the next one, really. And yeah, that's probably why I really like this game so much anyway. Hopefully no one who hasn't played it watch this, because it is really worth trying out.